I built the ultimate fishing micro skiff using a $350 boat from Temu that can fish day or night. I hand built the electrical system and tricked out the boat with rod holders, GPS, and tons of lights. I grew up as a poor Florida boy fishing from canal banks, and I never had thousands of dollars to spend on a fishing boat, but Grandpa always taught me if you want something nice, you gotta build it yourself. And with a little, so I logged on to Temu, searched an inflatable boat, and bought the cheapest one I could find.
So we got a package in fresh from China. I did some research and found out that this boat actually used to be sold primarily in Europe for upwards of 600 euros. So that's pretty expensive, over $600 American. But now for some reason, China is selling it through Temu for only $350, which is quite a deal. It looks pretty awesome on the pictures. Let's open this thing up and see what it looks like. Oh my gosh, I almost ran the razor right across the boat. There's no protective packaging in the box at all. This must be the center. Here's the bow of the boat. The whole thing doesn't feel very heavy, which is a good and a bad thing. It's good that it's light, easy to transport. It's bad because it means that they didn't use a very heavy duty or thick rubber to build the boat with. But man, this thing looks pretty dope already. It's got the ropes all woven in the side, all military style. This bad boy looks sweet. All right, let's stretch this thing all the way out and get it blown up. We have two options. We did get an air pump in the box. This is pretty much a standard paddleboard air pump. It could pump this up. I definitely don't want to use this. I do have my own electric paddleboard pump. There's actually 3 separate chambers, which is pretty cool because if any one of them ruptures, you still have 2/3 of the air in the whole boat to get you home. So I really do like that safety feature. Starting to take shape here. We've got the 2 pontoons partially inflated, giving the boat some structure. Now we can fit the floor piece inside. Once it's inside securely, then we'll go ahead and we'll give full pressure to the whole boat. Let's connect to it. Let's give it some air. Side tubes inflated to 3.5 PSI, floors at 10 PSI. Floor is rock solid and it's got a really nice flooring on it. So far, pretty impressive. It looks pretty cool. Smooth bottom, not very hard. That's kind of a bummer. I wish they would have lined this with like a harder, more abrasion resistant rubber, because if this thing hits bottom, this feels like a pretty soft material, could tear. There is a paddleboard fin box right over there. So you could put the fin in there and run this thing just like a paddleboard or a regular kayak. Looks sweet, man. This thing looks like a Navy SEAL military boat had a baby with a paddleboard, and this is what you get. Really cool looking rib style. You've got the ropes on the outside here, so you could attach accessories to the ropes or use the ropes to hold on to, climb back into the boat when you fall down. Floor is actually very, very rigid. I'm pretty impressed. Floor, we inflated it to 10 PSI. That gives you a nice rigid floor, and it comes with a pretty sweet like EVA foam deck on it already. We actually have a bunch of storage right up under there, so you could tuck bags, boxes, all kinds of things up in the bow, and they're out of the elements, which is pretty neat. It's got a really, really sturdy transom in the back. It's got like a bilge area almost, and it's got a drain plug in the back. Looks like a check valve, so when the water gets in, water can flow out. Self-bailing, paddle, seat. You could use this thing just as it is now, maybe put some coolers in it for a seat, but we do have these really nice, they're actually aluminum. That's pretty impressive. Wow, very nice. Let's pull the plastic off the seat. Dude, that looks really nice. The back seats here, uh-oh. All right, guys, something doesn't look right here. First off, the seat doesn't even appear to be big enough. There must be other mounts in the box. The brackets that are on the seat absolutely do not match what's in the boat at all. Thanks a lot, China, for sending me the boat with no seats. Paddle feels real chintzy, very, very thin. Does come with drip guards, which is nice. Here we go, paddles mounted. Boat looks pretty cool. Pretty bummed though that the seats don't mount. I'm pretty bummed that it has a soft bottom, doesn't have any hard stripping on the bottom. Oh gosh, yeah. It's not too bad. Definitely feel some flex in it, but it's holding my body weight spread out across the 2 sawhorses. Strong little boat. So I'm gonna say this boat should be strong enough to take out in the ocean. Let's try and rig the motor up. See what that says right there? That says outboard motor in Chinese, I'm assuming, because this is a $250 outboard motor that I bought from Temu. Now this outboard motor claims to be a 4 horsepower, 4-stroke outboard motor. Now, unfortunately, this thing has leaked oil all over my shed and all over my driveway already. They must have sent it out packaged with oil, or somebody had bought it, filled it with oil, and then returned it, which is not a good sign. But look at this guy, not bad, very light. Look, I can hold it with one hand. Very light little motor, probably about 25 pounds. Really nice transom on this boat. Looks like it's made out of plastic, but it does look pretty tough. It's got some traction pads where the motor mounts, and looks like it's already set up to go for this outboard motor. It does not appear to be adjustable. The prop is sticking way too far down in the water. This is not good at all. So on the outboard motor here, we have what we call the cavitation plate, and that thing needs to be up closer to the hull. So it looks like this thing needs to go up 4 inches. So what I need to do is add a piece of wood right here where the motor mounts to raise the transom up about 4 inches. Obviously this is a pretty terrible sloppy mounting job, but if the boat performs well enough out in the ocean, then I'm gonna go ahead and build a really nice, proper, strong transom mount for this thing. I just don't wanna waste time on it if this thing is gonna be a total piece of junk. And now we've got the bottom of the cavitation plate almost in line with the bottom of the boat. So that should be pretty good mounting height right there. All right, ready? We got it all primed up. Here we go. First try, not bad for a Chinese motor. Feels really good. I might want to get rid of the cooler though. I might want to see it lower, give it more stability, but we'll try it with this first. So far, it seems pretty cool, and the board, I keep calling it a board, but really it's a boat. It's super stable. Like, I'm rocking it back and forth, putting weight on my both legs here. This thing is very stable.
The water test started off pretty good. The motor wasn't very fast, but I was very impressed with the boat. It handled the wind chop on the bay really nicely. And then I did some wave testing by running this through the wake of another boat.
All right, here we go. Here's a little bit of waves right here. Oh yeah, nice. Whoa, all right. We got a little water over the side. All right, we're surfing it. Oh, we lost it. Oh, here we go. Oh yeah, now we're surfing, baby. Woo, we're surfing.
I put a few more beat downs on the boat and it handled really well. It cuts over waves pretty good. It cuts through chop really nicely. It's definitely a good riding boat, but we began to run into some trouble with the motor.
I don't know what's going on. Could be because of new motor and it's breaking in, but it's got some weird smells to it, like it's burning off oil or running hot or something.
And the more I ran it, the worse the problems got.
So we got some serious problems. We're actually leaking gasoline out of the motor now. And it won't rev up any faster than this, which is probably half throttle.
All right, I got old school on it right now. He is actually an outboard mechanic. He's taking a look at the motor because something is seriously wrong with this motor. It'll only get up to about maybe 40% throttle, 50% throttle, and the thing doesn't really take off like it's supposed to. Now you can see the hull of the boat rides really nice, so when this thing gets going, this is gonna be a nice rider, but this motor is just a total piece of junk. Well, what's going on? What do you think's happening?
The jet just makes no difference whatsoever. I went 5 turns in, 5 turns out, makes no difference.
So what do we do?
I think we gotta pull that needle out. But what we ought to do is to pull the lower unit apart, up this way, and take the 2 screws and make sure that thing's full. And then put it together full.
You don't know if it has gear oil in it.
I have no
Yeah,
idea.
it's weird. There's like 2 blank holes where the screws should be,
Yeah.
but nothing's there. Whoa, easy on the motor. Boat looks great. It does look good. All right. So I ran the boat back to shore, which was risky because if there was an issue with the motor, I could have damaged it further. But I figured if the motor was already toasted and I'm gonna send it back to Temu anyway, I might as well run this thing into the ground. So it looks like I may have destroyed our Chinese outboard motor here by running it without adding any oil into the gear case. Now in my defense, there is no fill or drain plug on the gear case, so I don't know how to add it in anyway. But there is a warning sticker on there that says, "Warn, gear case oil must be added." Kind of broken English, not very clear how to do it. So I may have actually roached the gear case on this. Oh my goodness. Well, there is a ton of corrosion in here already. We're gonna take these 2 bolts out and get the gear assembly out. Oh my goodness. The gear case is just
filled with metal powder. It looks like glitter. These gears were grinded bad. This thing was running on pixie dust, guys. It is just full of ground up metal shavings in there. It looks like glitter. We need to clean out the shavings from here. So I'm gonna use some of this brake clean. Oh my gosh, it looks like glitter. Now that we got all the shavings cleaned out of the gear case, I think this thing might be okay. The gears look all right. Now that we've got all the magic pixie dust drained out of the gear case, I'm gonna add this heavy duty oil. This is made for the transmission and differential gear cases on tractors. And there's no fill level on here. I'm just gonna wing it, fill it about halfway up, put the cap on it, and we're gonna send it. Put Tef gel on all your fasteners, especially when you've got stainless going into aluminum. And these bolts right here, guys, we hit it with the German torque wrench and they'll be Guten tight. Before I put the propeller on, I'm gonna hit this with T9 corrosion protection. I can hear the gears engaging the shaft pretty smoothly. Shaft's turning up into the power head. Oh yeah, looks good. Now the other issue with this outboard motor is that it's not able to rev up past, I would say, 60% throttle. Seems to have a fuel delivery issue, probably a bad carburetor. So I reached out to Temu. I tried to return the motor. Now, the seller who sells the motor reached out to me and offered me a $25 refund so that I could go get the motor fixed. Now, fixing this motor for $25 seems kind of crazy, seems like a ripoff. So I did some researching on Amazon and I found a whole service kit for this motor that includes a new carburetor and a new spark plug and new fuel lines for $9.99. But to make the most of the situation, I messaged the seller back on Temu and told them I need at least $50 so that I can pay for parts and a technician to repair this motor, and they agreed and they actually refunded me the $50 back onto my credit card. So this motor did cost $250, now it only cost me $200. So hopefully this is gonna fix our power problems on the engine. We've got old carburetor, new carburetor. So the bore inside this old carburetor is way smaller than this new one. So either the engine's not gonna work at all or we just gave this thing a crazy horsepower upgrade. Let's see if this works. Yeah, she's working. The last major issue we need to fix on this motor is the lack of a safety lanyard. So this motor actually has a ratcheting throttle and no safety lanyard kill switch. So if you were to have this throttle cranked up and you were to fall off, this thing is just gone. It's gonna keep going without you. So we need to put in a safety kill lanyard so that way you can attach this lanyard onto your vest, and then if you fall off, it's gonna pop out and cut the ignition off on the motor. Okay. Let's see if the safety kill lanyard works. Choke it, unchoke it. Whoa, guys. Make sure the throttle's all the way down low before you try to start it, but yeah, and then watch. Kills it like that, so if you fall off, shuts the engine off.
So I took the boat out to a deep canal on the edge of the Florida Everglades for a good test run.
We definitely are in gator country, so I don't want to go down here in this water, but it's not a very far swim over to the bank, so I'll be okay. Let me show you the whole shot on this thing. I'm gonna hit it and you'll see how quick it gets up and goes.
The motor seemed to have good torque and decent acceleration, though it didn't seem to have a very high top speed. But the performance definitely improved with the new carburetor and oil actually being in the gear case. I ran the boat at full throttle for a while, made sure it was nice and hot. The motor performed pretty well. It was very consistent, no loss in power. The boat hull itself is awesome. I feel like it runs through the water very well, jumps over waves really nicely, and handles chop really well. So I'm really happy with the boat. I'm gonna give the boat a 9 out of 10, and I'm gonna give the motor a 5 out of 10.
Well, I am impressed that the gear case still works. I mean, this thing had metal shavings in it. We really did the gear case dirty and it still works. So that's pretty impressive.
Now that the boat and motor was finally running good, I could get on to the next step of tricking this thing out into the baddest fishing micro skiff out there.
The engine's running pretty reliably. It doesn't go quite as fast as I had hoped for, but for only $200 after that refund, I think it's an awesome deal. And I love this boat. It's such a cool looking boat. It rides really well in the water. So I think this is gonna be an awesome boat to compete with the $3,000, $4,000 fishing skiffs. So in order to build the cheapest, baddest fishing boat out there, I spent over $680 on boating accessories on Amazon. Let me show you what I got. We got the Water Snake Tracer electric trolling motor. We're gonna have a gas and an electric motor on this boat at the same time. We've got the Garmin Striker 4 CV GPS and fish finder. This has the clear view transducer with it that gives you an amazing image of the bottom. So we're gonna be able to find the fish, mark spots, do all that kind of stuff, just like a big expensive fishing boat would be. And this thing was only like 180 bucks, so I think it was a pretty good deal. I've got 6 of these floodlights that we're gonna put all around the boat so we can run day and night. We're gonna have spotlights looking ahead, floodlights going out the back and side, so when we're fishing, we're gonna be able to see into the water amazing. I've got 4 of these adjustable rod holders. We're gonna put 2 rod holders in the front, 2 in the back, so we're gonna be able to store a bunch of rods and troll at the same time. LED navigation lights. This is the green and red lights that's gonna go on the front of the boat. I'm actually gonna build a deck up there and mount these up there. And I've got this RGB ICD LED rope light. It's gonna go around the boat for ambient lighting and for showing off, but this thing is crazy. I don't know if you've ever seen one like this. And I've got an entire switchboard that I'm gonna mount into an electrical box to run all the lights and the electrical accessories. We're gonna need to mount a bunch of lights, our power box with our switchboard on it up here. So I decided to use this space. Now the boat comes with these bungee cords. It's pretty decent storage, but we need a hard deck. So I got this 3/4 inch extruded PVC board. I'm gonna cut this in a V shape, mount it up here. We're gonna paint it black. We're gonna put some C-deck on it so it looks really, really nice. Looks like it came with the boat.
I marked off the contour of the boat onto the PVC. Then I used a jigsaw to cut out the curved edges. I then took the angle grinder and rounded off all the corners, smoothed it out. I used some sandpaper to smooth off the edge real smooth so that the paint would adhere to it real nicely. I got this awesome looking EVA foam deck with a black and blue hexagon pattern on it. I used a razor knife and a straight edge to roughly cut it close to the size of the board. I then peeled the adhesive backing off of it and stuck the board onto it, pressed it down really well. I cut off the edges rough with the razor blade, but I still didn't have a perfect edge on the EVA foam deck. So I pulled out the router and routed the edge of the EVA foam deck, which made it match the edge of the plastic perfectly, and it gave it a nice rounded over edge. It fit on the boat perfectly, and the blue hex pattern looks so sick.
I think our little deck with EVA foam looks really cool. So what I'm gonna do, I have some more of this EVA foam on the roll. I'm gonna go ahead and throw some on the seat that goes up here. Now I am gonna use the seat to mount the rod holders on, but this seat right here gets really, really hot. If you're gonna step on this barefoot, it's just smoking hot because it's black metal in the Florida sun. Blue hex pattern looks really good on this boat.
Now it's time to fix up our motor extension bracket. I cut a pressure treated 2x6 to exactly the right size, rounded off the edges with the angle grinder, clamped it in place on the boat, and drilled through the board and the transom. And I was actually surprised to find there was wood inside the transom of the boat. I spray painted the board black, and I applied 5200 marine sealant to the holes, and then I put it on the transom, ran the bolts through, and cranked the bolts down. To finish it off nicely, I put Tef gel on the threads and acorn nuts on the tips of the bolts. I taped off the boat and did some touch-up paint where the marine sealant had squeezed out of the bolt holes. Now I have to install a removable horizontal board to mount the trolling motor and accessories in the back of the boat. So I laid out a 2x4 in the back of the boat and I marked it where I wanted my trolling motor to sit. I went ahead and cut it with the saw, and I cut out a little notch in the middle so it would fit on the transom bracket without interfering with the clamps for the motor. I rounded off all the corners with the grinder. I set the board back in place and it fit perfectly. I took the motor off, got it out of the way, and then I drilled through the transom and my horizontal board for bolt holes. I took it back off and spray painted it black. I put 5200 marine sealant on some carriage bolts and shoved it through the transom board. Now they are going to be fixed in there all the time, and the horizontal board is going to be removable. So I put some Tef gel on the tips of the carriage bolts. I put some nuts on and I cranked it in order to set the carriage bolts into the wood. And then I touched up the paint. So now it was time to put the gas motor in place and install the trolling motor next to it.
Yeah, plenty of room on here. There's our height adjustment. We can spin all the way around. Plenty of room for our trolling motor to work in conjunction with our big motor. And then when we are ready to run the big motor, trolling motor comes up like this. This thing comes up, it's totally out of the water. And look at that. Nice and secure over here. Now what I want to do in the back here is mount a rod holder on either side of the boat, so that way we control 2 rods out the boat at the same time. And then the other thing we're going to need is spotlights. So we're going to have a spotlight on either side of the motor.
These rod holders are really nice because you mount the bases on and then you can take the rod holder on and off when you're transporting the boat. And they can be rotated and adjusted to any angle. I pre-drilled the hole for my spotlight bracket, put 5200 marine sealant to seal the hole, and then ran the screw in there real tight. I then put the light in place and found the right positioning to where I could have it shining backwards and slightly downwards into the water, and then I made sure that the motor was able to clear. Now with the crossbar lights and rod holders mounted in the rear of the boat, it was time to work on the front panel. I drilled holes in the front deck so I can mount it with zip ties to the eye-rings that the bungee cords are going through. Then I made an extension block to mount on the front of the boat so my lights would look over the bow. I cut it with the saw, smoothed it off with the grinder, and painted it. While the paint was drying, I figured out where I wanted to put my rod holders on the front seat. I drilled through the front seat, put Tef gel on the bolts, and mounted the bases of the rod holders on the seat, cranked it down pretty good. I reinstalled the seat back into the boat, put the rod holders in place, and it looked perfect. And I still have enough room to stand in between the rod holders if I want to get a high vantage point while I'm fishing. The paint was dry on my headlight extension block, so I set it in place on the deck, pre-drilled some holes, and I mounted it into the little deck. I then put the little deck on the front of the boat and figured out how I wanted to position my headlights. I pre-drilled the mounting holes, put some marine sealant in place, and screwed the brackets down. I put the headlights in their brackets, lined them up, and cranked them down, and these things look awesome. They're going to put out so much light. Now that the forward-facing lights are finished, I need to put the port and starboard side lights in. I have to drill all the way through the board and run a bolt up from the bottom because extruded PVC is not really strong enough to handle screws. The screws could rip out, so I do want to through bolt this. I angled the light slightly backwards and down. That way it's looking into the water, kind of in the area where you would fish on the side of the boat, but it's not shining into your eye.
This is going to be my control box here. It's going to have my switchboard on here, and then the GPS is going to go next to it like this, and then all the wiring is going to be inside this watertight box. So I need to make some chalks back here to angle this forward. I need to paint this black. I need to get all this mounted up and all wired up inside the box. I figured out what angle I wanted the box facing back at, took some measurements, and then I cut some pieces of wood on the angle to mount the box onto. I smoothed the blocks off with the grinder, and then I pre-drilled some holes into the electrical box and ran some screws from the inside of the box and mounted the angle pieces of wood. I drilled a bunch of holes in the back of the box for the wires. These are going to have cable glands going through them, so they had to be the right size holes. I then laid out the template on the front of the box to mount my switchboard onto, and then I used the vibration saw to cut a perfect hole into the front of the box. The switchboard fit perfectly into it. I pre-drilled the mounting holes into the switchboard. Then I took the switchboard back out. I sanded the box so the paint would adhere to it very nicely. I spray painted it black. And then once it dried, I put all the cable glands into their holes and tightened them down. With the box painted black and the cable glands in place, I can now mount it on the front deck. I laid it in place and drilled 4 holes. Then I flipped the board over and I ran screws up from the bottom until I could see the EVA foam compressing underneath the switch box. I put a little bit of silicone on the gasket for the switchboard to make sure that it was 100% watertight. I put the screws in and snugged them up just enough. Now the box was finished and it looked awesome. It was time to mount the GPS and start wiring in all the other components. I matched up the mounting angle of the GPS with the switchboard. I set the bracket in place and I ran some screws into the PVC board, and it held good enough to mount the GPS with. And then I snapped the GPS in its place and it looks phenomenal next to that switchboard. I began the incredibly long process of wiring all the components into the switch box. I had to extend all the wires and all the components because they were too short. I used heat shrink connectors on everything, and I doubled up with additional heat shrink on top of the connectors, so everything was double sealed up. I stuck on our port and starboard navigation lights onto the side of the deck in the front, and I extended their wires and ran them into the box. I added this quick coupling onto the wires that come from the back of the boat. That way I could remove the back panel of the boat real easily and disconnect the wiring without having to open the box and do anything inside the box. And of course, everything double sealed up with heat shrink. I then installed zip tie saddles. That way I could route the wires securely. I installed the saddles onto the board, laid the wires out, zip tied them all in, and snipped off all my zip ties for a nice, clean, routed wiring. At this point, I had all my accessory wires routed into the cable glands in the box. I had the switchboard in place with some of its wiring, and I had to do the arduous process of wiring all the components into their respective switches. I had to install this 12 volt to 24 volt converter in order to run my fancy accessory lights that I'm going to show you later. And now I was so close to being finished. I've literally been working all day on wiring this boat up, and I'm really starting to wonder if this was worth all the work. But we are wired up here. I know it's not as pretty as it could be. Once I test this out, I am going to tidy up the wires some more and kind of clean this up, but I do like to leave it all loose when I'm testing in case I need to tweak something. Now is a good time to go ahead and throw in the lithium battery. We're gonna throw the positive on first, screw that in, then we'll go ahead and tap the negative, make sure we don't have giant spark, tap it, and yeah, look at that. No sparks, that's a good sign. Oh, nice, we got a voltage readout. Okay, we got a voltage readout on our panel up here. Nav lights, forward spot, left spot, right spot, rear spots. Unbelievable, it all works exactly in the right order that I planned it. Let's go ahead and fire up the Garmin. Oh, Garmin's beeping. Is it coming on? Yeah, there we go. Let's go. I love that clear view transducer. It looks really, really nice.
Now, with all the accessories and the electrical components wired together, it was time to connect the accent light, wrap it around the boat, and see what type of electrical load our system is putting on the battery.
So we have all the switches on. So we have all the lights on and the GPS. So this is maximal electronic load minus the trolling motor. Let's go ahead and take a look at the battery diagnostics. 99% in discharging, negative 100 watts. So with everything on, we have a 100-watt draw right now. So that's pretty good. So with a 100 amp hour battery, this thing could run probably 11 or 12 hours at this current rate, which is an excellent runtime. Awesome, okay. So 100-watt load with everything on, that's not too bad considering the amount of lights that we have on here. And with this battery, lit time, 12.8, 100 amp hour, we could go a long time like that. Once we go out tomorrow, we'll get the trolling motor on there and we'll see what the trolling motor draws, and then we'll have a real estimate of how long this battery is going to last. It was a long, hard day, but it was definitely worth it because the boat looks so sick, especially with the accent lights. I love being able to change the different color schemes. Now, what's unique about this, it's an RGB IC. So RGB LEDs are the types of LEDs that can become different colors. RGB IC, the IC means individually controlled. So what that means is that any one of the LEDs along the whole strip can be its own unique color separate from the rest of the LEDs. And what that allows the controller to do is give it different patterns. So it allows it to change colors, it allows lights to chase each other up and down the strip like that. A lot of options with this, really, really cool. Now let me get up in here. We got our forward facing spotlights, our port side light, of course. If you want, you can give it on the starboard side. So we have individual control of port and starboard. We can look out the back there, see our lines. And then of course we've got our, little fancy light here on a switch. And then we've got our navigation lights. This is how the boat looks in the dark. I have no camera lights on. All I have on is the strip light around the boat, and I've got the navigation light. It's a nice soft glow, so you could definitely work in here, tie off baits and do all that stuff. Let me go ahead and shut off the navigation light. And it's not super bright for filming, but this is just perfect to have as a nice courtesy light. And let's go ahead and let's throw it on like a red color. So here's the red light. This is the perfect amount of light as a utility light. Doesn't kill your night vision, but it gives you just enough light so that you can work inside the boat. And let's go ahead and throw this thing onto green. And there's green. Green's a little bit brighter. I definitely like the red. Red's got a really good feel, really good ambience with the red there. So the boat is very configurable for a lot of different situations, which is what I like. So let's get this thing out and let's get some fish on board. I got the boat brought out, launched on the beach. I got all the gear set up on it. Wasn't actually too bad because all the main components are mounted on that front panel there, and the whole front panel goes on. So that's a bunch of the lights, the switchboard, and the GPS all goes on in one shot. The backboard in the back goes on. You got your two lights, rod holders go in. Probably the longest part about setting it up was stringing the rope light around the outside of the boat and zip tying it. That was kind of annoying, but I definitely think it's worth it because it looks really cool and I really like the ambience lighting it puts up. Oh, and I did make one mistake. I forgot to bring the trolling motor Totally stupid. Very important component, and I forgot it, but it's okay because we still have the gas motor ready to go, and we have a paddle just in case the gas motor fails. And also, I did not bring the transducer for the GPS. I left it in my garage, so I definitely have a couple of flaws in my deployment and setup of the boat, but let's see if we can get some fish.
So I began to run my night fishing skiff across the bay, and I gotta tell you, it's a really comforting feeling having all of these lights on board. One of my biggest fears with running boats at night is having a bigger boat run you over because they're not able to see you. But I know with my spotlights all around the boat, I'm able to be seen all across the bay, and I'm able to see things that are in the water in front of me, behind me, on side of me. So this is a really awesome setup for nighttime running. The strip light inside the boat provides just enough light for me to see things inside the boat. It also provides me with just enough light to film with the camera. I'm actually filming with a 360 camera now, which normally do not do very well at nighttime, but this is giving me just enough light that I can film with, yet it's not blinding me. I can still see out across the bay, no problem, because I've got the spotlights projecting forward. I can easily see the GPS fish finder from where I'm sitting, and also the switch panel has illuminated rocker switches on it, which is really nice because I'm not fumbling around in the dark to find the right switch. I pulled up on some mangroves, could have some redfish or some snook in here. I cruised along and checked it out. It's awesome to have these lights shining down into the water because I can kind of see down in the water, spot any fish that might be down there.
The lights are attracting the fish. There've been some fish that have come up and actually crashed right into the boat, which has been pretty funny. So it may actually be an advantage to have these lights on at nighttime, at least with some of the species of fish. Okay, I don't know if you can see this, but I'm on the edge of the mangroves here. This looks like a good spot to post up. Let's put our anchor out.
So I anchored up at this spot for a bit, which was a bummer. I wish I had brought the trolling motor instead. Could have kept me in a little bit tighter to the mangroves in at better fishing spots. I was kind of bobbing in and out with the wind closer and further from the mangroves, and the whole situation was kind of a mess. I probably scared the fish away by getting too close with the gas motor to the mangroves, and then things got real bad when the handle fell off of my reel. Apparently I didn't have the handles on my reels very tight, and they actually vibrated loose while they were in the rod holders and got lost out in the bay.
Let me give you a tour around the boat. Night fishing on this thing is awesome. So take a look up front here. First, I'm going to show you the switch panel here. Very, very convenient. It's really nice. I can reach the switch panel from where I sit, and I can also see the GPS from where I sit. And let me show you some of the lights we got going on here. So we have our forward facing spotlight here, forward spotlights. We have our side spreader lights in the water, port side and starboard side. You can control them both in case you're just fishing from one side and not the other. So that's real convenient. And then we got the light in the back here, which is awesome for trolling and all that. And it's great just to have 360-degree lighting. You can see I got my anchor out in the water. You can see it in the light there. Camera backpack here. I've got some of the safety emergency gear tucked up under the way. I have an extra handheld spotlight right here. I have no camera lights on. We are only being illuminated with the rope light that goes around the boat. It's on green mode right now, and it's not a ton of light, but it is enough to work with. You can see, I can see everything here. I can tie off lines, I can work with my rods and all that. So this is all the light I really need. I don't even have my headlight on. I can put it on here, but yeah, the green light is just like the perfect amount of light, gives a good ambiance.
Drop a comment below and let me know, is this mission accomplished? Did I build the sickest nighttime fishing micro skiff from a cheap boat? And does this boat have the capabilities of a far more expensive fishing boat? Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next video.